Chapter 3. Jamal stretched out his long legs. He slouched at a desk in the back of his language arts class. Mrs. Cooper stood at the front. She held a small paperback in her hand and scowled at the students. Who's done their homework? The class was silent. Who's read the first chapter I assigned? No one raised a hand. Who's even opened the book? Still no answer. Mrs. Cooper marched down the aisle. She came to a stop and crossed her arms. Darnell, you look like a strong guy. Were you able to pick up the book, or was it too heavy? She waved the thin paperback around to show how light it was. I must have hurt my arm playing football, he smiled. I wasn't able to lift it. The teacher looked around the room. Carlos, Eli, Jamal, how about you? Only Carlos spoke. We all got injured playing ball as well. I didn't think we had a football team, Mrs. Cooper said, eyeing Carlos suspiciously. We don't. He raised an eyebrow and grinned. But you know how rough touch football can be. And what about Rico? Isn't he supposed to be in class? I think he's sick, Jamal said. Eli nodded. Yeah, sick of school. Jamal, Carlos, and the rest of the class all snickered. Mrs. Cooper put her hands on her hips. Well, if you're not going to read at home, then I'm going to make you read in class. Everybody get out your copy of The Catcher in the Rye and start reading. And I don't want any talking. Jamal could hear the teacher muttering to herself as she retreated to her desk. He pulled the book from his backpack and turned to page 1. He glanced to his right where Carlos was sitting. He wasn't reading. He was too busy scribbling a note. Carlos folded the paper and tossed it onto Jamal's desk. Jamal hid the note behind his book so Mrs. Cooper's hawk eyes couldn't see it. He opened the paper. Big meeting in the gym after school. Something about football. Pass it on. Jamal folded up the note and tossed it over to Darnell. Then he went back to reading his book. Not much was sinking in, though. His mind was on football. He wondered what the message meant. Jamal cruised down the hall with Carlos and Darnell. The other kids moved out of their way. Stayed close to their lockers. They were 3 strong guys with reputations. No one wanted to mess with them, not even the teachers. Jamal knew most of the stories weren't true, but he wasn't going to destroy his street cred by correcting them. He just let people believe what they wanted. The 3 rounded the corner and walked into the gym. They bumped fists with Billy and Eli, who were already there. About 20 other players from last year's team were packed together in a big huddle. They were standing against the wall under the Go Saints Go sign, left over from last year when there was still a football team. Any news, Eli? Jamal asked. Negative. They haven't started the meeting yet. There's a rumor the team's getting back together, Billy said excitedly. How can that be? Jamal wondered. The principal of Southside and the Saints head coach from the year before walked toward them. Principal Campbell and Coach Kemp had been meeting in a small office at the side of the gym. The principal was new to the school and still trying to make her mark. She was no nonsense in all business. Coach Kemp had run the Southside team for years. He was easygoing and knew football inside out. Jamal and his teammates loved to play for him. Listen up, Coach Kemp said, adjusting his ball cap. Jamal and his teammates put a lid on their conversation and moved a few steps closer. As you all know, the Saints football program was canceled last year. We just didn't have the money in our school budget. The players cupped their hands around their mouths and booed. But Principal Campbell has an exciting announcement to make. That's right, Coach. She held up her hands for quiet. Yesterday I received a call from the president of Fort Sporting Goods. Jamal knew all about Fort Sports. They were the biggest sports equipment company in Canada and had stores all over Toronto. He often stopped by to check out all the cool football gear he could never afford. Mr. Fort is a big supporter of high school football, and he made an offer. But before I said yes or no, I wanted to ask what you all thought. Lay it on us, Carlos said. The principal cleared her throat. Mr. Fort wants to donate $20,000 to Southside High to get the Saints football team going again. The gym exploded with cheers and whistles. He's willing to give us all the equipment and the uniforms the team needs. So what are we waiting for? Darnell asked. There's a catch, Principal Campbell said, glancing around at all the players. Mr. Fort also wants to be head coach. What about Coach Kemp? Billy Chang asked. He'd be the assistant coach, right? I'm afraid not, Coach Kemp said, shaking his head. Mr. Fort wants to coach alone. He says he has his own way of doing things. The players groaned at the news Coach Kemp wouldn't be allowed on the team, but the players were still pumped by the news. Is there still time to play this year? Jamal asked. I called the league and told them about our situation, Coach Kemp explained. They said that if the team started practice right away, you could still play the season. The Saints' first game would be in 2 weeks. So that's the deal, Principal Campbell said. But like I said, I wanted to ask you all you players first. I thought we could take a vote. Jamal felt bad that Coach Kemp wouldn't be part of the team, but he would do almost anything to play on a real football team again. Playing pickup with his friends after school just wasn't the same. He knew Carlos, Darnell, and the other guys felt the same way. If that meant letting some rich guy be coach, well, that was just the price they had to pay. How bad could he be anyway? The Principal Campbell raised her arm. All those in favor of playing football this year? Every hand in the gym shot up. Wonderful. I'll call Mr. Fort and give him the good news. Just at that moment, the gym door swung open. In walked Rico. Looks like someone has made an amazing recovery from being sick, Carlos joked. When I heard there was a football meeting, I suddenly felt cured, Rico said with a smile. Did I miss anything? The Saints are back, Jamal said. I'll fill you in.